Hello, everyone, and good afternoon. I'd like to welcome you all to this executive briefing with Microsoft, featuring Ben Vollmer, who's here with me today. He is Microsoft's Global Field Service Director. Our objective here today is to share a vision and relevant stories of field service digital transformation and openly collaborate amongst peers about your current situation, providing you time to learn from each other in this executive briefing forum. I'm Rob Urbanowitz, and I'm the Vice President of Enterprise Services at Velosio, and I'll be your host today. I have a few housekeeping items to share before we get started. First, we're not automatically muting everyone on entry, so please be aware of that. And if you believe there's background noise, please go ahead and put yourself on mute. We'll try to monitor that throughout. Along the way, if you have questions, feel free to chime in. So we are looking to have an open discussion here today. Of course, you can always raise your hand in the chat or ask a question, and we'll be sure to address your point. Before I introduce your speakers, I wanted to provide a brief background on Velosio, who is sponsoring this event today. We are a technology company committed to helping our clients get to your next in your digital transformation and ultimately realizing business value faster. Our team of nearly 400 employees has deep experience across the Microsoft stack and specifically focus on resource-intensive businesses, including professional services and, of course, field services. We've been delivering successful client transformation projects for 30 years with over 4,000 clients and 10,000 successful projects. Now, on to our main speakers. We're excited to have Ben Vollmer here today. Ben is Microsoft's Global Field Service Director and has helped companies improve their customer engagement and field service strategies for over 25 years. In his current role with Microsoft, Ben is responsible for the development and execution of a global commercialization strategy across R&D, sales, marketing, and partner organizations. Ben's passion is working with executive customer leadership to organize, prioritize, and execute field service as a part of their strategic agenda. Welcome, Ben. Secondly, we'll have Eric join us in a second here. Eric Ludwig is an IT leader from Midwest Industrial based in Canton, Ohio. He has been a Velosio client for many years, and we appreciate you being here today, Eric. Midwest Industrial is an earth-conscious solutions provider of products and services that help overcome dust, erosion, ice, and unstable soil conditions for clients around the world. In his 21 years at Midwest, he has served in many roles, including the Director of IT, Controller, Production Manager, and Director of Operations. In leading the digital transformation at Midwest, he's moved them from Salesforce to Dynamics 365, CRM, and field service, and delivered a streamlined system for dispatching, driver data collection, visibility of customer status, and inventory management. Welcome, Eric, and we appreciate you being here as well. And now let me turn it over to Ben to speak about Microsoft and their vision for the future as we go through our agenda. Once Ben is completed, we will also have a customer story then from Eric, and he will really go through the experience that he went through at Midwest as they did their digital transformation, adopting field service, and talk about some of the key benefits that they realized. And finally, we'll wrap it up with a roundtable discussion. And that roundtable discussion will address some of the challenges you are faced with. So I'd like to have an open discussion about what those challenges are, what you're doing to address them. And one of the things that I would like to also make sure we hit on is all of us working from home and how that our COVID situation and the pandemic has impacted the workers that are out in the field. And finally, Ben and I will share some closing thoughts and we'll be able to wrap up. So turning it over to Ben, why don't you lead us through Microsoft's vision for field service?
Thank you, Rob. So welcome, everybody. I appreciate the time you gave us today. We're going to go through mainly from a non-technology perspective, what our view of the field service market is, what's really changing, what's staying the same, what's moving across all these different areas. So this slide got a lot of the boxes on it. I'm going to really put these slides kind of into three main boxes here. So let's first look at the right two boxes. I would say every customer I talk to, every time I talk to them, between the aging skills gap and then just the knowledge skills gap is really one of the biggest things on every CEO's mind, every VP of field services mind. So how do I find people? How do I keep them utilized? How do I keep them working? And then how do I replace workers as they come up for retirement? That's a huge area of concern for a lot of our customers. So the first thing I would say is when we look at the landscape of field service, I would say the first thing we look at is kind of the people. I think Eric will get in a little bit of the culture and cultural norms and changes, but really that drives from your people side of things. And that's a huge kind of initial swath here is around the talent side. I would then say the middle two are then also linked together, which is our customer expectations. We'll go through this in a few seconds here. The expectations our customers have of field service has drastically changed over time. We'll talk about this more in a minute here, but really the idea that field service is different and critical to business is there, and the customer's expectations that is also rising. Along with that, we'll get more in depth here in a second, is the way by which field services are sold to our customers have changed. And so we really are seeing much more on contract and consumption models. And then really the first two, I'm going to say are really for manufacturers. The first one's really for manufacturers, the second one's really for manufacturers and service providers, which is products have become services. And that we're seeing a lot of IoT enablement and remote servicing being done, which was something that wasn't done even 5, 10, or 15 years ago. So that's what we view as Microsoft, kind of all up the holistic landscape as looking like, and really the key challenges that field services organizations see across the board, regardless of whether it be industry or vertical or even company size. And part of that evolution, I would say, first of all, comes down to the customer's expectations. If you think about your expectations of field service over the years, over time, as a consumer, and these will then flow back to other things too. As a consumer, your expectation initially was just give me something that break fixes. Now I'm moving to give me something that fixes it faster. Now it's first time fix or do it yourself. And an example I use there is, 20 years ago, give or take, my wife and I got married. And I thought it was the hot thing at the time, and I got me some ISDN service in my house. It took, at the time it was a company called Bell South. It took Bell South 6.5 months to deliver ISDN service to my house. And I look at it today, I moved about 1.5 years ago. In the house I moved into, I literally picked the phone up, I called my high-speed internet provider and said, hey, I'm moving. Here's the address I'm moving to. This is the speed I want. They said, no problem, Mr. Vollmer. And I showed up at the house to move in. Sitting on the front door was a package. I open the package up, says plug the modem in here, twist this knob, turn it on, and you're good to go. So really, in that 20-year period, we moved from break fix and very slow reactive support to very fast support. And the customer expectation is that's how it should be. Now, as we look forward, what we're seeing is the customer expectation is now going to be based upon uptime or availability. It's really going to be SLA based. That's more, servitization is the term we use, outcome driven is the term used. If you're in one of the cool kids clubs, the Uber of insert product or phase here. But as you go through each one of those phases, and by the way, your organization itself can be in any one of those phases, and that's okay. But what we find is most companies want to move from being a cost center to being a profit center, and then actually moving lastly to really being outcome driven or servitization center. And so that kind of mind shift in the service industry is actually what's driven a lot of the change, not only from a systems perspective, but from a company culture perspective, from a people perspective. Really every perspective of the service industry has been impacted by this change. And so the challenge really is, how do I improve customer satisfaction, or how do I improve productivity? And again, I think as a field service organization, that shouldn't be an either or. It should be an and. It's how do I not only improve my satisfaction and improve my productivity. And so if you look at this from a high level here, what does it cost for you to do a truck roll? Now everybody's got a different term for it. Truck roll is the term that we use here. But what does it cost to get a technician from the HQ, if you will, or from their house to the job site? $175 is a fairly accurate low number. If you're driving a big truck like Eric's going to talk on here in a few minutes, $175 is probably very, very low. And then really, how do you make your technicians succeed? The industry average for a first-time fix rate is 74%. Now, if you break this down for a second here, if your first-time fix rate is 74%, which means 26% of the time, you don't fix the problem the first time. So you got to make an additional visit and a half to make that piece work. So if you do the math, and I've done the math, if you have a 500 tech organization, it's a $2 million a year problem or solution, moving from a 75 or 74% fix rate to an 80% fix rate. Okay, so really it's how do I help drive technician success along the way? And then also, how do I increase my technician productivity? Every company calls it something different. Some companies call it utilization, some call it idle time. I'll let you insert whatever the title you want to call it here is, but how much of the time do your technicians spend not doing billable productive work that your clients value? And what we see, by the way, deploying field service is that our customers on average see a 25% improvement in idle time, which means for the same resources, you're getting more efficiency out of the same resources without having to go hire more people to fill in those gaps. Now, let's talk about your workforce just for a minute here. A couple things, and I had this conversation with somebody, I want to say it was yesterday. It's not that the people coming into the job today aren't skilled. It's the people coming into the jobs today have a different set of skills than the people that have the jobs today. And the example I use there is your auto mechanic. For those who don't know me very well, I'm a car nut. Like I love me a vehicle. Don't care which one. If it's got wheels, I love it. If you look at cars, 1974, whatever it is. My favorite car ever was a 83 to 87 Audi Turbo Quattro Coupe. You open that hood up, beautiful 5-cylinder engine, turbo on one end of it, gorgeous, and with a 10mm socket, 10mm wrench, you could pretty much fix that entire car. I mean, heck, with a Volkswagen Beetle, you can take it apart and put it back together with a 10mm. I just bought a new truck this past weekend. I opened it up and went, yep, there's an engine in there, closed the lid and walked away. Why is it? Because now when you go to the mechanic, they go, the computer says your starter's bad. So really, the skills gap we have here is really changing the way our workers are working and the tools we're giving them to be successful. And so it's really around, we need to close that skills gap, both internally as well as externally, and adapt to the new way of working by our employees. As part of that, though, you also need to reskill your existing workforce. You can't have a bifurcated workforce where half of it's doing, computer work and half of it's not. You really have to bring them together, and that includes empowering your first-line workers. Now, what that does is that really helps open up market opportunities for you as a customer. By empowering your workforce, you can deliver new services. Why? Because your workforce is being responsive, being engaged, giving you feedback on various areas where you can start delivering services you may not have thought of before in the past. You can optimize your operations. And we'll get into this in a few minutes here. On the CRM side, it's a fairly odd conversation to have, but how about days sales outstanding? How long does it take from the time you do some work to the time you get paid? That's really more of an accounting term, if you will. But think about how accounting-centric field service is. So how fast can I digitize my operations? I had a customer who their setup time and billing time went down by 80%. Now, that's a huge, I mean, the day sales outstanding actually paid for the entire project. And part of that, though, means you can reimagine not only manufacturing, which is what I'm talking about here generally, but it's also you remanufacturing how you provide service to your customers. So again, kind of to summarize here, what Microsoft sees at a holistic level globally is really transformation of field service from being a cost center to being a profit center, which is really where you show differentiation, and then follow that up with moving into outcome driven. And so really by doing that, there are ways that you as a customer can get and feel impact immediately that helps drive that. Now, how does Microsoft play a part in that? I would say how Microsoft plays a part in that is actually pretty simple. You think about on the left-hand side here, we have a suite of phenomenal, what we call first-party apps. These are applications that we've built that are purpose-built just for the specific use case that you have and you need. So field service, commerce, customer service, Salesforce automation. And underlying that is what we call the Power Platform, which includes things like Power BI, which is a world-class business intelligence solution. Power Apps, the ability to build yourself an app when there isn't an app for that. Could you build field service with a Power App? Well, you could, but then you'd lose all the richness that Microsoft spent millions of dollars and years developing. Power Virtual Agents, how do I have real-time conversational things with my users, with my internal users, with my external users? And then Power Automate is really the power to tie this together to make sure that you can either push things back and forth to SAP or Business Central or supply chain management, or as simple as even sending a text to a customer saying your technician's en route. So when we look at when Microsoft looks at kind of our value proposition here, we look at our platform at the center, our apps surrounding that as adding huge value to you as a customer. And then around that, we're making massive investments in both artificial intelligence as well as what we call insights. And then around that, we've wrapped a layer of mixed reality, which means no longer is the days there of where you think, this is science fiction. Our apps, you can pull them up, deploy them, and use mixed reality on your phone or on a HoloLens very, very quickly, very, very easily. So what's the net result here? So the net result is you as a customer, by deploying a field service solution that really helps you look forward to the future, can move from very reactive care, which is where you're reacting what your customers want, to then being proactive and actually reaching out and saying, Mr. Customer, it's about time for your pickup. Do you want it now? A siloed view of data. Many organizations today, including the field service, they have a field service solution that might work very well for them, but the data is all siloed, so it can't be consumed by customer service or by sales or by finance or anybody else. So it's really how do we bring the connected view of the data together, which kind of leads to holistic data. If your tech is out in job site and he or she notices a customer moved and they change the location of the customer, that's a holistic data. We should really be doing that. And it's really moving from reporting activity. I did this, click, click, boom, boom, reporting. Now there's still regulatory reporting requirements. Don't get me wrong. That's not what I'm saying, but I'm saying a lot of activity we ask for our technicians to do are, when did you show up at the job site? How long did you spend there? What did you do? Why don't we lift that mundaneness off the technicians' shoulders and really help them provide outcomes to their customers? Now, Eric's going to talk about their story here in a second, but for me, really, why Microsoft? What makes us different from everybody else? You look at other field service providers, why? So first of all, I'll say we have a very rich field service functionality. Our field service functionality, matter of fact, you look at the 2019 Gartner's, we were third place as far as the completeness of what Gartner viewed. And that didn't include customer service or Salesforce or even the platform. That was just the field service functionality. Our customers ranked us best in return on investment. I'm happy to provide through Dale, if you want to see it, a study that Forrester did for us for total economic impact. The way our customers calculate their impact was massive and helps you. And then, you know, we're a successful product. We have cross industries. A lot of field service products are very niche and they fit one industry. We really drive a diverse set of customers that helps you as a customer be successful and then leverage what other industries are doing in your own industry.
Thanks, Ben. That was very insightful. Really appreciate it. I'd like to make sure that near the end here, we'll open it up for questions for you, because I'm sure that our audience will definitely have some questions for you. I can tell you here at Velosio, what we've experienced with our clients, and we focus on the mid-market client base. What we've experienced with our clients is that our clients typically start, like Ben said, in one place, and they continue to grow with the Microsoft platform. So we're seeing a lot in the field service side that start with field service initially, and then they expand to other areas once they've had that first deployment. Where you have other places where might start on the ERP side, and then field service might be later, or CRM first and then field service. But the key has been to get the data in one place and to start adding on the apps as the company can digest it, and then really start to take advantage of it. And timely here today, we have Eric with us today, Eric Ludwig from Midwest Industrial. And if we can get to the next slide, Eric really is going to provide first an overview of Midwest Industrial, and then provide us with a story that he went through and what he's realized in benefits leveraging field service in Microsoft. Eric, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, so Midwest Industrial Supply is, we're a dust control service provider in the industrial market. A lot of these places just have dirt roads, gravel roads. A lot of problems arise from that, not just in generating dust and potholes, but the wear and tear on the trucks, the wear and tear on the individuals. And so we provide a solution where we come in, control the dust. It's a turnkey solution that we provide our customers. We've got 20 drivers out there in trucks, and when I say drivers, we talked a little bit about some of the gaps in training and all. We may hire someone with a CDL, but that's not the reason that they come to us and stay, is because there's a lot more to the offerings that they have to provide to the customer than just driving a truck. They're doing the application, they're understanding what needs to be done on the site. And so there's a lot of information that is gathered and that needs to be transferred between the sales engineers, field engineers, and our applicator drivers. And so we've got a lot of different custom equipment that is utilized in this service. We are worldwide. I mean, we'll probably be going to Mars, or at least the moon, in the next 5-10 years, because they have dust problems too. But we're about solving those problems. So, so that's really kind of just a background about us. But what happened with us and what was our journey? So if we go to the next slide, kind of just give a little bit of the challenge that we had is we just had a true lack of the ability to get information to the right people at the right time. And we were using all sorts of tools. We started out with Great Plains. That was our first Microsoft product. We've used that for over 20 years, actually. It started out, and the Microsoft acquired them back in around that 2001, 2002. And we've gone through a lot of revisions of that product, but it was what brought us to the need for a CRM. We took a different approach with the CRM a couple times, and we've settled on the CRM Dynamics 365 from Microsoft, that platform. But it also gave us the ability to utilize the field service. So it wasn't a one time we implemented everything. It was over a period of time. But as we were getting to where we are now, there was a lot of tools that we used. I mean, people were sending in stuff from fax to emails to text messages. Some were using a web app that we had done internally and designed. It was riddled with flaws and bugs, and we spent a lot of time fixing those things. The drivers would get frustrated with trying to get information through that. So we were having a lot of internal just chaos going on. In fact, to solve the problem of issues with data, we threw people at it. We had a full-time person that was just dedicated to rekeying data that was coming in from all these different sources. And then we're using, part-time people, taking people from other activities and using their time to help meet the needs. Because we have 5 dispatchers across the country that are, executing to meet the customer's needs and to dispatch our trucks and our drivers to the different customer sites. And each one of us was doing it completely different. Some were using paper, others were using, we're not sure what they were using. They were just really able to retain and have a great knowledge of their customer base and solving problems that way. But again, you create some major gaps in your workforce if someone gets promoted, decides to leave or whatever. That now, how do we handle those problems?
Hey,
So
Eric,
yes.
I'm curious if you were aware of the inefficiencies with the additional staff that you were having and the dispatchers doing different processes, or if it was just sort of like, hey, this is kind of the way we operate our business and it's a part of doing business.
Well, it's a good question. And I can say that when I was in finance, before I came over to operations, I noticed a lot of inefficiencies. And then I took over operations and I discovered a lot more. and I was kind of sinking because there was so much that needed to be done. And yeah, that's why we threw people at the problem. And we knew that that was not a good solution, but we weren't sure what to do next. And we had brought on, Salesforce. We were within 2 years not happy with that and made the transition over to the CRM with Microsoft. And upon the completion of that task, we saw the real need and understood the need, where our pain points were and where our gaps were, that we needed to bring on the field service module to give us that commonality. Because we have drivers, they don't just slip seat. We may send someone from our Illinois office out to Arizona and work in the mines for 30 days, and so having a tool that is a foundational piece, okay, because we don't hire them for their technical knowledge. We hired them for their ability to do the applications, to understand the customer needs and to provide the solution, and so some of them, the iPad was kind of a tool that was frustrated them. So we needed, again, a mobile solution that provided ease of use. And that was a huge piece of this, and then we had the need to integrate our data. So we had that 360 view, holistic view of our customer experience with us, not only from sales and from the engineering group, but from field service and all that we're providing. And so that when, like when a salesman would go out to a customer, he has access through reporting and other methods to see the information that has been gathered by the drivers. They're not going in and getting, broadside, with something that they weren't aware of. So,
right.
And then, yeah. So I think we could go on to the maybe the next slide there. Yeah. So the results is that one of the things, everybody lives off cash. Cash is king. And what we experienced in the process before we came to field service, we had a lot of waiting. We had wait states everywhere within our system. We're waiting for data to come in from whatever method it was. Someone had to get us in, the paperwork so that we could bill the customer. And every one of those wait states added to the time it took us to get that cash from our customer. So we reduced that by 2 to 3 days, and that is a conservative estimate. I would say it's closer to 5, but I went with 2 to 3. But we have a group out in Arizona that we were having some real issues with. Getting that data back in a timely fashion. They never come back into Canton. So, the leverage you had was a little different than a driver that resides in Canton. So those, I know we saved 5 days on the process just by implementing this. Again, we were able to redeploy those individuals, the full-time staff member and the 2 part-time people, to more value add work within Midwest. All right, and then again, just the view of the data. We utilize, Power BI. We use the views within the CRM and the field service to see what is happening with our inventory, what is happening with our customer sites. We need to track not only, how many gallons a customer uses, but how many gallons per area do we apply? Because for many of our customers, they have EPA requirements that if they don't meet, they're getting hit with thousands and thousands of dollar fines per day. So we provide the record keeping and reporting that they need. And this is information that is gathered through the mobile app, in the work that drivers, the applicators are doing on their iPads. And then, we have a large fleet. And we used to use 80% of our product line was an off-spec material. It cost us like 3-6 cents a gallon. Not too bad if you misplace, a couple hundred gallons or you wash it away, but we over time have, improved the technology and have become very eco-friendly with the products that we provide. And now those same, gallon per gallon cost is up to $3 to $4, $5 a gallon. So you spread that across, a fleet of 100 trucks and 100 gallons, that adds up pretty fast, that you're just washing away that inventory. So better management of our inventory, because we know that we're dispatching them with 1,000 gallons. They report back that they sprayed 800, when we now know that there's 200 gallons in that truck that we want to repurpose. So,
And in the past, it sounded like you wouldn't repurpose that. You would just flush it out.
Flush it away. Yeah, we would rinse, because we have to rinse the trucks out because the next job may call for a different product or whatever. So we would come back, and the plant guys didn't know that there was product in there. They would just do their job of washing it out, but you're washing away profits every time you did that.
Yeah.
And then, the last bullet point up there is the driver morale. Again, these guys are out there, and sometimes they can be gone for, 3 weeks at a time from their families, and the frustrations if they have something that doesn't work well for them. Now that I'm back in IT, well, when I was in field services, I heard it. Now I hear it from on the IT side. If something doesn't work, they don't wait to tell you. They're going to call you at 10 o'clock at night and bend your ear. And so as we rolled this out, I made it a point to go out and to meet with them. I did travel out to California, to Arizona, to meet with the drivers, bring them in, do some training. But what I found is that, a one and done was not always the case. There's some coaching that went along with this. Is that, I would continue to reach out to them, make sure things were working well for them, and just coach them through it if they were having a difficult time, so that they felt that, it wasn't a bother to pick up the phone and say, I got this issue or that, or, something's wrong with my iPad. What can we do? In fact, as we rolled out the second phase of the field service with the new UI, that we pulled the drivers after a year of using it. What are the things that you like and what don't you like, so that we can make the experience better for them? So it was just a continuing to work with they're my customers, and I need to treat them that way. So.
Yeah, this is good. Hey, Ben, can we keep on this slide for a moment? I'd like to open up the phone lines, and Dale, if you could do that and unmute everyone. If there's anyone who has a question for Eric, I'm hoping that you'll be able to answer any questions that anyone might have for you. So if we could do that and allow the audience here to open up for questions. This is an executive forum. So that didn't work so well, but no, it's an executive forum, and what we would like to do is have an opportunity for those that have joined us today. We purposely made this focused on a smaller group so that we could have interaction and engagement with our panelists here, and then with each other. So I thought it would be good to first start if there's any questions for Eric, and let me start first and then I'll open it up to the audience. But Eric, one of the big things that Ben talked about was connected field service and IoT, and maybe you can give us some perspective about if you're thinking about anything in that direction in terms of what's your next.
Well, actually, we actually have already started on one of the nexts. Is that we do have an engineering group that goes out and they gather data. It's called visual emissions observation. It's a way you go to smoke school, they give you a degree, or it's not really a degree, but you're certified to know how to judge the emissions that come off roads and what kind of opacity you're dealing with. All right. Well, they were writing this stuff down and then trying to find, the weather information, the humidity, the temperature at the time they're taking these writing, and then they're writing it down, in a notebook. Well, that notebook gets tossed in the back of the car, and then when the customer needs the reports, the engineers kind of panic and they go and they find all this data, and then they sit down and they enter it into Excel. So working with you guys, we came up with a nice little tool that goes right on the iPhone or the iPad, which allows them to enter that in. It's tied right into our customer database within the field service, and it also to the areas that each customer has. All of that is repurposing the same data set, and then they just are recording the visual emissions reading, what type of truck they saw, what the speed of that truck was, and then automatically it goes out. It knows based on the GPS on the device where they are. It returns the weather information, the humidity, the temperature, and a lot more, wind direction, and all sorts of other things. But then that information is stored and is available instantly for repurposing of that data for usually it's an annual report we provide the customers. It's hard, fast data that says, this is what we did and here's the outcome we provided, because you can see the emissions have dropped. The opacity has improved. So those are really, that's one piece, that's just one tool. The other one is the integration of the inventory all the way through the system into our ERP system in Great Plains, that we actually provide the transaction. Right now we do have that data stopping and it's pushed into Great Plains by an individual. We're going to take it the next step further and go all the way through the system.
Okay, that's
Again,
great.
we thought about doing that in the first pass, but again, we took it out of scope because sometimes you need to walk before you run.
Yep, absolutely. No, I understand. So back to the audience. Eric just provided a nice overview. Any questions that anyone may have of the experience that Eric has gone through, or any of the results?
Thermometics.
Hey, Bill, how are you?
Good. You, Rob?
Good.
Question is, Eric, you say you use Power BI. Are you using Power BI with field service, and what are you using it for within field service?
The Power BI, one of the things is that we like to have a view of what our customers are, what our drivers are doing at our customers, because they may have 45 different areas where we apply products down. And so the Power BI is returning that data in a nice grid pattern for us to view, so that we can use that same information. The salespeople can use that for when they're having conversations with the customers, what is going on, year over year with the data. Because we have had a full year of data from last year. Now we're starting our calendar. We're not a calendar year customer. April 1st is our fiscal period. And so on April 1st, we started our new year. And so now we're able to compare year over year with the data through Power BI. It's just a great visual to see what is going on in the field service in a more graphical and picturesque view of it. Now,
Right.
A lot of times we'll provide the customers reports and we utilize Crystal reports because you can get to the same data in the cloud with Crystal, and that provides a very data intensive document to the customer. they're looking at numbers, and and so it's just a little more conducive to the way that they're used to it. In fact, we were able to reproduce the same exact reports that they were getting before, so to them, they didn't really see that there was such a change, because we worked very hard to continue to provide them with the service we were doing. We just did it with less people and less headaches. Hope that answered your question.
Bill. Other questions?
So Eric, I would also say that other customers using Power BI, I also see them a lot around, like for example, staff levels. You may not have the problem in the Midwest Industrial, but how many technicians do I need versus what's my workload versus what's my preventive maintenance contracts. And so we see a lot of customers use Power BI almost as a forecasting tool to help make sure we have the right number of techs doing the work globally.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you. Can I ask Eric another question? Eric, do you use any kind of time card reporting system in field service for your drivers?
Our drivers are all salary based, but we do need to report mine hours to a large part of our industry is controlled by regulations, and the MSHA group for the mines, very, very safety conscious, and if you don't comply with their way of doing things, you don't do business. And we need to provide hours of service on site, and we use the field service app to gather that data. It's also how our people report their per diems. We pay a per diem if you're out over 12 hours, if you're out overnight. They get a stipend for that, and that's all done through the field service app.
Yeah. Good question, Bill. Any other questions for Eric before we move to a little open discussion for all of us? Okay, it doesn't sound like it, but thank you, Eric. And Eric, please join us for the rest of the discussion here as well. And like I said, this is meant to be an executive forum, and what I've always found is that when we have an opportunity to have people that are in a similar industry focused on field service in particular, it gives us an opportunity to share some of the thoughts of how each of us are, what we're dealing with in our own businesses, and learn, and really a chance to learn from each other. And I'd like to open this up, and looking for some brave souls out there who would be interested in helping us understand, number one, what is a field service challenge that you're facing, and how are you dealing with it today? So I'll just open up the lines here and let the first brave soul pick it up.
I'm not afraid to go.
Of course, Bill, thank you.
We've been on field service since the end of February, so we're fairly new with it. Very happy so far. It has made us able to bill a lot quicker than what we were. One of the challenges we've been having, though, is it seems like it could be quite cumbersome sometimes for the PO process and just running the work order through its whole process. A lot of different things happening. Is anybody else experiencing that? And how have you trained your team to take care of that? So my dispatcher tends to harp on me a little bit about that.
Right.
So I don't. So this is Ben, by the way. From a product perspective, I don't know the exact answer without knowing some more details there. But like I met with a customer this morning, and really what it came down to was there's some functionality that may not be kind of readily apparent out of the box. That helps. So for example, one of the things one of the problems we ran into this morning was actually around what we call resource pools. So it's really how do you take advantage of some of the functionality that we have in the product that may not be obvious at first, because we are, I think the difference between us, Dynamics Field Service, and other field service products, if you will, is that they're very tied to a vertical and very, very heavily towards a vertical, whereas our product is much more horizontal. And so sometimes doing some automation to reduce those steps, or another way of doing it, helps customers out considerably.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Ben? Yeah. Other volunteers to discuss any challenges that you have just around field service, not necessarily with Microsoft or necessarily using field service, but just in your own field service organization.
I will ask about partners for field service. We have to lean on partner networks nationally, in addition to our own small force of field service agents.
Yeah.
Do you have any recommendations or best practices for how to integrate multiple partners into our platform as opposed to us trying to work on theirs?
You asked the right person. Ben just had a webinar on this.
I do this. I have this conversation about 300 times a day. When it comes to partners, everybody does it differently, by the way. So I'm going to just, so when either Rob and his team or anybody's team comes and say, hey, Ben, I got partners or subcontractors. I want to figure out how to leverage them. The first question I usually ask is what type? We've identified both through vertical research, talking to customers, there's actually 3 types of subs, if you will, or partners. There are, I'm going to call them staff aug, which is where a company that's like Comcast or AT&T outsources a big chunk of their business out to another company. So that's kind of step one we see, and that's actually very similar to managing employees, just with a different pay structure. On the bottom end of the spectrum is kind of the Uberization or the marketplace of vendors. So again, another customer I have, they had I call them low skilled work, which was racking magazine racks in grocery stores. And so that was very much a marketplace where you basically bid on projects to get that project to go do it. So kind of a reverse auction, if you will. And then the middle, what we see we didn't have a good name for them internally, so we call them part-time workers, which are they work for your company 1 or 2 days a week. They work for another company 1 or 2 days a week. And so part-time workers is actually what we think is about 50% of the marketplace, given what we've seen so far and everything else. And so I would say first and foremost is figure out what type of partners you're working with, how do you integrate them in, and what do you want to do once you integrate them in. And so we've got multiple ways of doing that, both from inside the systems as well as feeding data to external systems through APIs, et cetera. Okay, fair enough. Good perspectives to start on, and yeah, thanks for fielding a big, broad question. Yeah, it's definitely one of those conversations that you can spend an hour just because, again, even as a part-time worker, by the way, depending on what industry you're in. I had a customer that we did some analysis. So what we did, we're trying to build a SKU for this. So we did some analysis. And so we went into customers. Okay, how many subs do you have? What do they look like? And then we started looking at all the layers. And what was interesting was we stopped at 6 layers. The number of layers that were there in the partner company. Again, now I have other customers who very tightly contractually control their labor. But it was funny how in some of the looser contractual stuff, there was a massive number of layers of subs in the org where I sub to somebody who sub to somebody who sub to somebody, 6 layers down, which is another wrinkle to work through in that process as well. Yeah, and I know one of the things we always look at from a partner perspective, or when you're outsourcing or having subcontractors, is what are you expecting them to get? Are they just coming to a portal for a work order that they go execute, or are you looking for them to actually have a mobile device and be recording real time and tracking everything real time? Because obviously 2 different deployment methods. And then we work with Microsoft on a licensing perspective to how do we manage the licenses as they get deployed like that. Yep, good question. Others that would like to offer a challenge that you're faced with around field service.
This is Rick from Thermaletics. I'm actually looking over Bill's shoulder because I'm inept and can't unmute my own computer. So I had to walk into his office. Rob, I spoke to you on the phone a couple of times. Nice to see your face.
Hear your voice.
My question is kind of specific. It's a crossroad we're at right now. We implemented field service, as you know. We also went with Microsoft Business Central. I was a little confused by Eric's response relative to we're making a decision on reporting and maybe dashboards. And we're kind of being steered right now toward using an application called Solver, which I understand is like a Jet Reports or maybe a Crystal Reports. My question to Eric is, did you consider doing your reporting in Power BI as opposed to using Crystal? I understand the value of Power BI for dashboards and the graphics. Did you consider using it for reporting? Why or why not?
We did. In internal reporting, Power BI is our go-to tool. I mean, we're moving even over from our management reporter with our ERP system to doing things with Power BI. The early issue that we had was getting the data to customers in their format, because some of them give us their design. This is how we want our monthly reports, our quarterly reports and annual reports to give to the EPA. This is what we want, this design. And they tend to be a little more just data intensive look and feel. I mean, you got, columns and rows, and it's Power BI does that. It for me and my knowledge is that it just didn't give me a good way to generate that report to them unless they had Power BI themselves. And now that could just be my own limitations of the understanding of that. So Crystal Report was an easy way to generate a PDF and email it out to them, as opposed to them having to have a tool themselves. So.
Okay, thank you. And so, but for your internal financial reporting, you are using Power BI for that function.
We're making our transition over to that
Okay.
right now. Yes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good question, because a lot of financial reporting we see using reporting tools like Crystal or obviously Management Reporter as well, but Power BI for a lot of the analytics, because you have the drill down capabilities and the basically querying capabilities to come up with lots of different scenarios. Let me open up the next question about COVID-19. Appreciate the questions already. Obviously it's been around here for the last 3 months. We've just adopted to really a new way of living. And I'm just real curious to hear from others about what they've seen in their field service operations that's had to change because of dealing with our global pandemic.
This is John Durkee with MD&A. I just comment on, we're constantly resourcing for planned projects, some a year in advance up to a week in advance, and there are a lot of variations in between. The biggest challenge we faced is the need for testing our technicians, our labor, prior to going to an outage. So that's just another variable we had to plug into the planning process, if you will, for resourcing a particular project.
And are you capturing all that data and do you report on it as well?
Absolutely. No, we capture a lot of criteria on we have field engineers down to, like I said, laborers, and we capture them and have to maintain certain qualifications and certifications, and they all have expirations on them and need for further training, and this is just another element that we've had to add to it.
Right. Good. Well, thank you for sharing, John. Any others experiencing anything similar or even different than what John explained?
I'll hop in here, Rob. What I'm seeing a lot of is a lot of our customers, two things. One is, they're shifting work internally. We're also seeing an interesting thing where, so for example, we're having a lot more of our customers repairing equipment with expert guidance from a remote technician from a service provider. because they're nervous about opening up job sites to kind of folks that were not on the site all the time. And so we're seeing a lot of customer service doing field service functionality, field service, having to go through more testing, training, certification on PPE. And we're also seeing more customers, kind of calling back into the organizations to say, hey, I want your help with this without actually being all the way out there.
Yeah. And Ben, are you seeing more deployment of remote assistance?
Our remote assist usage chart went about like this. Remote assist.
Why don't you explain remote assist to the?
So what remote assist was designed for is designed for if I'm on a job site, so I'm here and I'm fixing my IBM or Lenovo desktop, and I run into a problem I haven't seen before. I can hop on my phone or a HoloLens, whichever one you want to do, and I can call Rob and say, Rob, help me fix my laptop or desktop. And that is 100% done. So Rob can log in and can say, flip that switch, do this. And it's actually Rob having the ability to see what I'm seeing, augment it with drawings and certifications and bringing other parties to it. And so it's really having technicians be able to get a phone home or ask an expert without resorting to things like FaceTime or go to meeting to try to show and fix and resolve issues.
And are you seeing the customers using remote assist, or is it still always the technician?
So it was designed for the technician initially. We're seeing a lot of customers use it even for internal asset management, and we're seeing it for what we haven't seen yet, and we're working towards is what we call the C2 scenario, which is the customer's customer. We haven't gotten there yet, but that's on the very near horizon.
Right. Yep. Fantastic. We have time for probably one more question or example of how someone's dealing with COVID-19. If anyone's willing to share or has another question for Ben or Eric. Okay. Well, with that, since there are no more questions, we'll wrap up this executive forum here. I first want to thank our panelists for coming out here and sharing their stories. So Ben, thank you so much for sharing your time. And Eric, thank you for sharing your story and answering some questions here on the fly. Really appreciate that. And finally, thanks to all of our attendees here today. Hopefully you found that this was valuable for you. We'd like to do more of these in the future and focus on things that are relevant in the modern transformation that we're all going through, as well as relevant industry issues. Thanks so much and take care. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.